Right now at 6, the coast rattled by an earthquake and tsunami warning, prompting concerns about the possibility of bigger quakes to come.
Fortunately, it's really hard to say whether this one gets us closer or further from the big one.
And police shoot and kill a man outside a Vancouver grocery store. Why this investigation will be handled differently than previous police shootings.
And you want an independent group to be doing that investigation.
Plus, an abandoned barge finally removed from the Columbia River.
Without any kind of state action soon, it could end up being a catastrophic problem.
Why the cleanup comes with a more than $1 million price tag. Thank you for joining us. I'm Christine Pitawanich. We begin here at 6 with the earthquake that prompted a tsunami warning along the southern Oregon coast today. The magnitude 7 quake hit at 10:44 this morning off the northern California coast near Eureka. Tsunami warnings were issued from the Bay Area up to near Florence, Oregon. Thankfully, the threat did not materialize and the warning was canceled just before noon. For the most part, damage from the quake has been minimal in northern California, with stuff thrown off store shelves, out of kitchen cabinets, even some doors knocked off their hinges. The Bay Area felt some shaking too. At least one high school in San Francisco was evacuated just in case. And in Oregon, within minutes of the tsunami warning, fishermen and boat owners in Brookings headed out of the Port of Brookings Harbor to prevent any potential damage at the port. After the warning was lifted, you can see them making their way back to dock. We have team coverage tonight. John Adams is in Reedsport, an area included in that tsunami warning earlier today. But first, let's go to Matt Safino in the Weather Center. Matt, after that earthquake, a whole lot of meteorologists paying close attention to those buoys in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, and there's a special set of buoys that are out there specifically to measure tsunami waves. We'll talk about those in a minute. Of course, the earthquake, as you mentioned, Christine, off the coast of Northern California, several aftershocks as well in the 1 to 2 magnitude range with those. So there's a couple of different warning levels and information levels with tsunamis. The first one, information statement, no threat, just saying, hey, there was an earthquake, probably not a tsunami. A watch is issued when we think there could be a tsunami, like if there's a distant earthquake off the coast of Japan, let's say, then we'd have ours to refine that. Advisory is when we get strong currents and some waves. Want to stay out of the water, but not a huge deal. But a warning is, which is what we had today, meaning that we could see dangerous flooding and need to move to higher ground. You're used to seeing these signs when you go to the beach. Make sure you pay attention to those, know where you would move to if we get a tsunami warning like we did today, because the threat is real. Now, back to those buoys. This is one of the NOAA buoys. They're called DART buoys, which stands for Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunamis, DART, right? Another one from Australia. You see it's a bigger one from the Bureau of Meteorology down that way. And these are stationed all around the Pacific Rim. Everywhere you see a yellow or a red dot is where we have one of these DART buoys. What they do is they measure the displacement of water from the norm. And the one off the coast of Cape Mendocino today did just that. See that red line going way above the green line? This was 15-second data that is remotely reported back to the Tsunami Warning Center. And there was an increase, but it was very, very brief. And that was one of the reasons why the tsunami warning was issued, and then also why it was allowed to expire when it did. The waves right now around the West Coast, all back to typical late fall, early winter levels between about 6, 7, 8, 9 feet. Christine?
Yeah, appreciate you giving us all that information, helpful in allowing us to better understand it. Thank you, Matt. Now to John Adams, who is live in Reedsport tonight on the Oregon coast. John, that tsunami warning prompted evacuations in that area.
Yeah, Christine, good evening. I'm standing in the section of Reedsport that was evacuated earlier today. We're right on the Umpqua River, just a few miles away from the Pacific Ocean. Now, I spoke with Deanna Schaefer, the city manager of Reedsport, just earlier this afternoon. She told me they were first notified late this morning of the tsunami warning by the Douglas County Emergency Alert System. Then it was a race to gather as much information as they could, like what the potential impact could be here in Reedsport. The city made the decision to activate the levees in town, which would stop waves under a certain height from breaching the city. Schools also went through emergency procedures to make sure students were safe, and they alerted people in susceptible areas to move to higher ground.
It's an industrial area, but there is some retail. We have an Umpqua Discovery Center museum over there, so there could potentially be, tourists, visitors, that type of thing. So we just went door to door saying that we were going to put this in, and we asked them to move inside the wall.
Well, thankfully, as we now know, it soon became apparent that this wasn't going to be a destructive event for people up and down the Oregon coast. Schaefer says today was a good test run for the next time we have a potential seismic event. And Reedsport officials will meet with county officials in Douglas County to go over what happened today, the procedures that went into place. But Schaefer says the city officials here are very happy with the way things went today. Christine?
Yeah, glad they were able to get a good practice run in. John, again, reporting live from Reedsport. Thank you, John Adams. And anytime there is a big quake on the West Coast, a lot of us in the Pacific Northwest immediately start thinking about the big one, also known as the Cascadia Subduction Zone megaquake. We asked an earthquake expert at the University of Oregon if today's quake off the coast of California is any cause for concern.
These small events most frequently do not foretell that the bigger one is coming. There's always a small chance that this small one is what we call a foreshock. There's always a small chance of that. But throughout history, most frequently, these magnitude 7s are not followed by a bigger event.
Good to know. Now, according to his research, the West Coast's strongest earthquake on record is a magnitude 9.0. That hit back in 1700. It dropped entire forests into the ocean and triggered a large tsunami that reached as far as Japan. We have much more earthquake coverage on our website, KGW.com, including some really important preparedness tips for you and your family. For a link to those stories, visit our website, or you can text the word earthquake to the number on your screen, 503-226-5088. Then we'll send you right over the link to your phone. Developing tonight, 3 Vancouver police officers are on leave after a deadly shooting at a Safeway store. It happened last night at the Safeway near Mill Plain and Southeast 136th. As Devin Haskins found, this police shooting will be investigated differently than past shootings.
A new state agency called the Washington State Office of Independent Investigations is out here all morning collecting evidence, taking photographs, and will handle the investigation going forward. It's such a new state agency that they only started taking cases on Sunday, and this one was their first case.
Early Thursday morning, the Safeway parking lot on Southeast Mill Plain Boulevard wrapped in yellow tape. Washington State investigators looking into a late-night police shooting. We're told that around 10:45 on Wednesday evening, officers were called to the Safeway about a man in the parking lot. It's unclear what the call was about. What we do know, Vancouver police say they approached the man. A fight broke out, a gun was pulled, and a Vancouver police officer shot and killed the man. One officer was injured and was taken to the hospital and released.
We received the call from the Vancouver Police Department at 11:31 p.m. last night, letting us know what had occurred here. We immediately started activating our investigators to come out to the scene and begin the investigation.
Hector Castro is with the Washington State Office of Independent Investigations. It's a new independent agency created by the Washington State Legislature in 2021. It was created based on a recommendation from a task force that looked into police shootings. December 1st was the first day the agency started responding to calls.
To begin with, we're only responding to the ones that result in a fatality. And so this is our first one.
Up until now, a neighboring agency would have investigated these types of shootings.
You want an independent group to be doing that investigation. You want somebody where they don't know people who know people on the force, who don't know folks who are involved in the incident.
Roger Rogoff is the agency's director. The agency will have a phased rollout throughout the state, first starting in the Southwest counties and Olympic Peninsula. Each of the 6 regions will have investigative teams consisting of an experienced supervisor and senior investigators.
We have a staff of 56 right now. About half of those are investigators. Some of those investigators have extensive experience with these types of investigations.
State law says investigators have 120 days to turn over their findings to county prosecutors, who will then make a determination on if any charges should be filed. I'm Devin Haskins in Vancouver. Back to you.
Now to some of your other headlines. Portland police have identified the person hit and killed by a car in southeast Portland Wednesday morning. Investigators say 75-year-old Hong Nguyen was in a crosswalk on Southeast Division at 109th when he was hit. He died at the scene. The driver, a 38-year-old Scappoose woman, stayed and spoke with investigators. She's been cited for careless driving. And a federal judge has rejected a plea deal stemming from two deadly Boeing 737 MAX crashes. The crashes happened in 2018 and 2019. Investigators blamed a faulty system in the new MAX planes. This past July, Boeing agreed to plead guilty to conspiracy to defraud the government and pay a $244 million fine for misleading U.S. regulators about the system. Some people, including the crash victims' families, were critical of the deal, calling it a slap on the wrist. But now that deal appears to be off. Boeing and the Justice Department now have 30 days to decide what's next. Also, a bill providing tax relief to wildfire survivors is headed to President Biden's desk. Today, the Senate passed the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act. That means any relief payments helping with losses from certain wildfires don't have to be reported as income. It's retroactive to December 31st of 2019 and will apply to any wildfire payments through the end of next year. Oregon Senator Ron Wyden said the federal government has finally come to its senses. And in just 3 short weeks, Portland will implement its new form of government. And so far, both the incoming mayor and the current mayor say the transition of power is going well. Keith Wilson easily won the election in Portland's first ever ranked choice vote. He's an outsider who owns and runs a trucking company. Mayor Ted Wheeler says he gave Wilson an office to use the day after the election and has included him in many meetings and briefings. Wilson says one of the many challenges he'll face, a major budget deficit.
It's no secret that Portland is facing a significant budget shortfall. I will be deeply involved in steering Portland through a difficult budget crisis and cycle alongside our new city council. Despite this challenge, the expectations from our people remain clear. We are not going to sideline our efforts on public safety, supporting families and small businesses, or leading on climate.
The new budget will not start until the 1st of July. The mayors were also asked if they're worried about the Trump administration cutting federal funding to the city because of its politics. Their insights on that coming up next on The Story at 6:30.